Hello, so we're going to prepare your image for the desaturation. So there is a image that I'd like you to use to desaturate it. So you could actually use this image, same one I'll show you when desaturating it, and it'll allow you to have an understanding of how to. Hello, so we're going to desaturate your collage. I have uploaded a demo image that if your collage is not ready to do this, you could use this image so you're familiar with the process. Um, or you can feel free to follow along with your collage at this point. So I'm going to minimize this, get into Photoshop here, and this is what your collage should look like as you are ready to desaturate it. If you're using a camera, your image might look something like this. And so I need to square this off and get it ready for this part of the desaturation. So before we desaturate it, I'm going to square it off. So I'm going to minimize this one so we can just concentrate on your image as you would open it in Photoshop coming from your digital camera. If you look at the top of the window, you'll see that there's a file name that's some random numbers and letters that come from your camera, whether it's your phone or you're using a non-phone camera. But we still need to square it up and then also get it the right resolution. So the very first thing I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to make sure that I can edit this file. If I look over in my palette at the bottom in the layer tab, that I have one layer, it says background and it's locked. There's a little padlock here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that padlock. It unlocks that layer. It turns it into layer 0. Now I can edit this and I can trim away all this extra background. I don't want this. I want to make sure that when I go to print this desaturated image off, it's 100% the same dimensions as the collage that you're referencing. So at this point, let's get this scaled and squared so that we can print it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and rotate this. This needs to be 90 degrees rotated. So I'm going to go to image rotation counterclockwise. So here it is. Now it's rotated the right orientation, and at this point I want to need to square this up. So the first thing to square it up is cropping this extra outside away. So in your toolbar, I'm going to go down to this fifth tool, and this is what it looks like. It's the crop tool. If your crop tool is not visible, these sort of two converging L's, then look at the bottom of the icon. There's the bottom right corner has a slightly, there's a mark there, and it's letting you know that there's hidden tools. So if I click and hold on the icon, I get the hidden tools, and if it's not visible, it's still there, it's just hidden. So click and hold on the icon, make it visible. Once you select the crop tool, my window changes. I get crop marks on the corner and the sides, and I'm going to go ahead and just pull this down till it just touches the top part of my board. So on the top part here, you can see it's touching the corner up at the top right, but the lower left or the top left corner, it drops below. So this is where I need to square it up, and I'll get to that part in a moment. Pull this in, touches there. Bottom is pretty square, so I'm going to go ahead and just go right on up to the white. I won't have to edit that side at all. And this side, there. So it looks like I'm just going to have to correct the top and the left. Once I have it cropped down to where I want it, the option for the tool, I'm going to come up here and just hit confirm. So now I have two sides that are square, two sides that aren't. I'm going to fix that. At this point, if you have not made this layer 0, you're going to get an error. So make sure that this is layer 0, there's no padlock over here. If there's a padlock like that, you just click on the padlock, it goes away. Now I'm going to transform this so it's squaring it up. And if I want to, I can magnify it, plus make it a little bit larger, make it a little bit easier to see, just a little bit larger. Okay, so now I'm going to edit, transform, skew. I have anchor points in the corner, in the middle of the segment. I'm going to pay attention to the ones in the corner, and I'm just going to click on that corner anchor point and drag that out until the white is a straight line all the way up. I'm going to do the same thing for the top. I don't want to pull it this way. You don't want to do that, so I'm just going to keep it here on that edge and go straight up. You can have a lot of fun here distorting things, but at this point I don't want to distort, I want to square. So at this point it's ready to go, and just like in the crop, there's a checkbox up here to confirm your transformation, the skew. Click there. Now my image is ready to desaturate. Alright, but before I do that, I'm going to go back to my image and image size and make sure everything is the correct, right? Because if this is coming straight from your camera, it's going to be slightly different. So I'm going to go to image size, and here we can see that it is in fact a little bit different, right? The resolution is not the 360 that I want. If your camera is set for this highest resolution, it's more likely going to be 300. Sometimes it might be 180, but your inches are definitely going to be off. So what I want to do is, and this is actually dimension-wise, is pretty close to the right dimensions I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit resample and change this to 360. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just correct this to 14 and by 8.5, right? That's the size of my board. Now, if your image is larger than, or smaller, you could make this a little bit smaller. And again, you may be printing this out at a Kinko's or something like that. So they'll be able to fit on a piece of paper that size. So at this point, I'm ready to hit OK. And so now, with the magnifying glass on, I'm going to go to the top of the options here, and I'm just going to hit fit screen so I can see it in its entirety. So here we go. We see the whole image in its entirety. It's the right resolution, and it's all squared up. Ready to desaturate. So at this point, we're going to, first, I'm going to make the white, right? This board is white, but it looks a little gray because of the lighting situation when it was documented. So first thing I'm going to do is make this a white board so that when I go to print it out, this board is white on the printout. So over my palettes, I have adjustments. So in my adjustments, I have a lot of different icons, and I want to use this one in the middle in the top row. It's called curves, and these are adjustment layers. When I click this, I can look down at my layers tab and see that it created a new layer, and it's called curves 1 because it's the first one you've made. And then up on top, you should have properties. Your properties tab give you the properties of the current layer that's selected. And depending on that layer, there might be filled content here, or it may not be, right? When I have layer 0 selected, it doesn't really give me that much information as far as properties. It tells me what the dimension is. But under curves, I have all these different icons, and I have a histogram here. I can scroll down and see it because there's more content there that fills up that space. But what I'm going to pay attention to are these eyedroppers on the left. There's 3 eyedroppers. There's a black one, a gray one, which is essentially your gray point, middle grays, midtones. But I want the white one. So I'm going to click on that white eyedropper. I'm going to come over to my image, and I'm going to click in one of the white places that are a little bit darker. And when I use curves and click there, it's going to uniformly affect the whole file. It's going to change the pixel that I clicked on to white, but in doing so, it's going to shift the whole file, that percentage that one pixel needed to become white. All the pixels are going to be shifted up. So if I clicked on this dark red with the white, you can see what happens. The whole thing is over. But I'm going to go back down to the white area. I want this area to be white down here, and everything else brightens up. This is now more accurate and close to the actual colors of the collage. So at this point, this is ready to go, and now I'm ready to desaturate it. This does not take long, so I'm going to desaturate it, and then I'm also going to lighten it up, because I'm going to use this desaturated image as the source, or as the surface in which I'm going to paint on, right? I don't really want you to have to worry about drawing this out onto the board to paint it. This project is more about matching the color theory, mixing color, having an understanding of color. And so you've already made the collage. I don't want you to have to remake it and redraw it. I just want you to mix paint now and match these reds, yellows, and blues, neutral colors that we're seeing on the collage in paint. So that's why we're desaturating this, because we're just going to put the paint right on top of the desaturated image. And I don't want you to put the paint on top of the colored image, because the color is going to change. The underlying color is going to be act as an underpainting and affect the painting on top. So what I need to do is I'm going to go back to my adjustments tab, and I'm going to go to hue and saturation, which is the first icon on that middle row. I'm going to click on that, create a new hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then up here on the properties, it gives me the properties for that adjustment layer. And the very first thing I'm going to do is take this saturation slider, and I'm just going to pull it all the way so it's a -100, and it desaturates the image, pulls all the color out of it. But I'm not quite done here in my hue and desaturation adjustment layer. As you can see, well, I got rid of the color. That's part of the solution here, getting this desaturated. But if I'm painting and mixing color and placing it right on top of this printout, this dark gray is pretty dark to put paint on. I just mentioned that we don't want colored underneath here, because it'll be like an underpainting, and the underlying color will affect the color you mix and place on top of it. Well, it's the same thing for the values. If there's a dark value here that you're putting paint on, that dark value is going to change the color or paint that you place on top of it. So what I need to do is I need to lighten the image up, and I need to lighten it in such a way that the details of the light areas, the light values that I see, I don't lose those details. And so if you look at this figure, this sort of fragmented figure over here, I can see that there's some values in here, or this shape and this shape, that are very subtle. And I don't want to lose that subtle change, because I want to understand where to make a lighter color value here compared to what's over here. And so if I were to lighten this too much, then I might lose that subtle change, and I don't want to do that. So I need to watch this. And so this part is going to vary by your design. Your collage will dictate how much to make it lighter. Everyone's going to desaturate it to -100, but making your collage lighter is going to vary from one person to another. So right underneath the saturation slider, there is a lightness. And I'm just going to pull this over to the right. I want to make the whole thing lighter, so you can see what's happening. All right, and now I'm going to slide this over until I determine that I've gone too far and I'm losing some of the intricate details that's telling me, okay, well, this is a color here, and this shape of that color needs to be separated from the other areas, right? So this area right here and around the waist of this figure, it's really close to not seeing that difference anymore. And if that's the case, then I need to stop. All right, and so at this point, this has been desaturated. I can see the individual values, which is good. The dark values are lighter, so that when I go to mix the paint and put on top of it, it's not going to adjust it too much, right? It's going to have an effect a little bit, but not enough to not enough that the paint won't overcome that. And then, and additionally, you don't have to worry about tracing this image onto a board to paint, right? We get right into at this point, printing it out and getting to mixing paint and applying the paint, which is where the bulk of your time should be placed at, mixing paint and then actually painting. At this point, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go to File. I'm going to hit Save, and I'm going to save this as Desaturated Demo, and then just to separate it, Print, because it is ready to print. I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. That's what the .psd stands for. I'm going to save it right here and hit save. So now it's ready to go, and your files can be closed, and you quit out of Photoshop. And you're ready to print this out and start painting. Again, if you have any questions, email or schedule a meeting. Thanks.